Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Cooking for Wellness with Giant Eagle. Tonight we have Chef Jason Johnson in the kitchen, and we are joined by our dietitian, Michelle. And I am Darlene. I'm the program manager here at Cancer Support Community Central Ohio. Tonight, Chef is going to be making grilled mushroom with artichoke tapenade. So we are glad that you joined us. And Chef, go ahead and take it away.
Welcome and good evening to everyone. We're definitely glad that you could join us tonight for our Cooking for Wellness class. And tonight, it's still considered summertime, and so this will be a great dish that you can definitely do for a nice summer afternoon or summer lunch, or a nice light dinner that you can do. Real simple, real easy. Great Mediterranean flavors that you'll be able to incorporate into this dish. You know, a lot of people are talking about the Mediterranean diet and going with a lot of Mediterranean influences when it comes to food choices or eating cleaner and things of that nature. And this dish definitely does that for you with a lot of these ingredients, as well as building really great flavors within this dish. Michelle, you know, we talk about Mediterranean diet, like it seems like it's become a big craze now.
Yeah.
What's your take on it, or what's the real about this? Because there's so many different, you know, eat keto, eat Mediterranean, eat, you know, so what, you know, what's a vegan? So what's the deal about Mediterranean diet?
Well, yeah. So I think sometimes we want to look at Mediterranean diet as more as a lifestyle because it's very reasonable to do on a more consistent basis. It's not really what we would say restrictive. I think a lot of times when we use the word diet, that's kind of what is insinuated. And I think the best thing about the Mediterranean diet is that a lot of foods encompass it because it's taking in such a diverse region of the world, right? There's probably over 5 countries that we would kind of include in the Mediterranean, around the Mediterranean Sea, and also, taking all their cultures into. But the benefits of the Mediterranean diet, it is going to promote more whole foods. If we would look at the Mediterranean diet pyramid, really the foundation, is physical activity and movement throughout your day. And then the next level is going to be fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Right. So there's really not quote unquote bad foods. And I know I kind of talk a lot about, good versus bad. And it's just really that nutrient density that we're trying to increase in a routine basis. So that's where that clean eating whole foods kind of concept kind of ties in with Mediterranean.
Great to understand because, it's kind of easy to get lost in all these different things that are out there, and I like that about the Mediterranean diet. One, there's a lot of variety and kind of more natural, given to those ingredients that you can use. And you're right, using that word diet, it makes it seem restrictive.
Right.
So as a lifestyle, just kind of a little bit cleaner eating, I think is beneficial to people, and they don't feel like they're being restricted.
Right.
So we're going to start here with some this dish with the grilled portobello. That's why I said it'd be this would be great anytime, but in the summertime, you don't have to start the oven up or anything like that. If you've got the grill out and going here in the summertime, you take your portobellos. So a great meat alternative, a nice hearty portobello mushroom. It's got that meaty taste and texture. It's very rich. And so you won't miss the meat. Now, if you have to, you can substitute like a chicken breast or so and still do this recipe. But, portobello mushrooms, Michelle, a lot of people think, well, is there any difference nutritionally between a portobello mushroom, a white button mushroom, shiitake mushrooms? Nutritionally, are they all the same, or?
They're very similar. I think a lot of times we have to look at the volume that we're consuming. So like a portobello, we're eating that entire mushroom. And so we're probably gonna get a little bit more volume with that consumption versus, adding, sliced mushrooms into a stir fry or adding it to our salad. But the nutritional quality and breakdown is not gonna change dramatically. And I think a lot of times, like, we really don't know where to put mushrooms at because they're really a fungus that we're consuming. So it's kind of like I would lean more towards vegetable just because of it's that savoriness versus any type of sweetness that we would connect with our fruits. And then people don't think there's nutritional quality to it because it is a fungus, but there's actually a great source of fiber in our mushrooms that we don't necessarily always take advantage of.
I know one thing I learned last year as we've been going through COVID. I had no idea this until last year when we were talking about good immune health. I didn't realize that mushrooms were a great source of vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for those who didn't know, to be able to include mushrooms or incorporate more mushrooms into your diet for a source of vitamin D. So milk is not the only source of vitamin D. I know that's
Right.
everybody typically you hear vitamin D and eat vitamin D. Everybody thinks dairy, but mushrooms have a really great source or a great source of that. And that's also beneficial for immune health, great immune health, especially during these times where we've been dealing with, the COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I'd
Yeah,
also,
Strands and things of that nature.
I'd also heard that they were a good source of zinc. Is that correct?
Yeah, so they're a pretty good, reasonable source of a bunch of different micronutrients. So copper, potassium, iron, and then a good source of our B vitamins. One of those being niacin. So our B vitamins are going to be more associated with energy. So our B vitamins actually help take that energy that we get from our foods, those calories, into our cells to actually function. And then, yeah, so again, those micronutrients, the zinc and iron, and those kind of work together. They're along with the copper. So iron is really something that's hard to absorb. It's not really what we consider bioavailable. So we could get a lot of it, but the type, kind of from a chemistry standpoint, the body can't always utilize all of it and absorb it. So we want to make sure that copper and zinc and iron are all kind of incorporated together. And then to help with iron absorption overall, whether we're getting it from our food sources or if you were ever recommended to take an iron supplement based on your lab values by your healthcare professional, taking it with some vitamin C is really going to be beneficial because vitamin C helps the absorption process of iron. And so with this dish specifically, we're going to get some vitamin C even from the artichokes, a little bit from the arugula. Again, we kind of think vitamin C, our oranges, all of our citrus options, but there is a reasonable amount of vitamin C and vitamin E, honestly, in those artichokes there too.
We're getting a little bit of everything here in this one dish.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So let me just show you guys real quick as far as mushrooms and portobello mushrooms. The biggest thing about mushrooms is just kind of cleaning them up, especially with portobello mushrooms. You may get a lot of like loose dirt when you pull them out of the package, or if you get them, fresh from your market. There may be some dirt or sand or so on that, so you want to make sure. I just take a nice, cool, damp paper towel or dish towel, and you just want to kind of gently rub off any of that excess dirt or so. I would not submerge these or run them underwater because mushrooms are very absorbent. So if you put them underwater, then what's going to happen? They're going to absorb that moisture up, and they actually already contain a lot of moisture. That's why when you're cooking mushrooms, it takes a little bit longer than you think because you're trying to get all that extra moisture out to where you get the caramelization when you're cooking them. So you don't want to run them underwater or submerge them in water to clean them. Just take a little damp towel and kind of just make sure you are wiping that off. Now, it's always been debatable, the gills, which are those kind of dark parts of the inside of the mush, especially a portobello cat. You're like, should I remove them? Should I not remove them? Depending on what your application is. If you're stuffing it, technically you shouldn't have to. It's not going to hurt anything. A lot of people do remove them for just presentation wise or the sight of, because those dark gills can turn your dish kind of a dark, muddy type of look. So if you want to, you could just take a spoon and you just gently taking your spoon and scraping a little bit of those gills. And that helps take those out. and you can proceed. Once again, it's not a necessity. It's not going to hurt you. Actually, there's a richness in the flavor contained in those gills. So you don't have to worry about it. So we took our mushrooms, we kind of marinated them, created a marinade for them. Got a little balsamic. I use white balsamic. If you don't have any, don't worry about regular balsamic vinegar. Some olive oil, salt, pepper, some garlic if you want in there. And just let them marinate for a little while. Get those flavors. Like I said, mushrooms are very absorbent. So if you marinate these in some create a great flavor profile, then it's going to absorb that flavor into it.
Chef,
So at least 2 to 3 hours, you want to have that in marinated in that mixture. And then we got our nice grill. You know, we're inside, so we're using a grill pan. If you don't have a grill, you happen to have a grill pan, or you can use just a regular skillet, probably a good cast iron to really get some good texture on these mushrooms. And so they are breaking down, they're grilling, they smell wonderful. While those are happening, we're going to make the middle part, or the stuffing, as you could say. And we got, like I said, those Mediterranean flavors. So we got some roasted red peppers. Just take a red pepper. You can put that on the grill too. Get a little char on it, and then peel the skin off. We got roasted red peppers. We're gonna put that. Everybody in the pool. We're gonna put that in our little food processor. So a little roasted red peppers. We got kind of coarsely chopped up, because we're gonna let the food processor do the rest. Then we have some artichoke hearts. They usually come marinated. From what I would say, in this dish, it doesn't matter. Just take a little bit of that brine off of that, because there's already a lot of flavor, a lot of salt that's in that. Drain those off. And if you need to, if they're large artichoke hearts, kind of cut them down a little bit before you put them into your food processor. We got some artichokes. And then we have some olives. Now you can use Kalamata olives or green olives. I actually have a mixture here, because one, I just like the visual of it, and they actually do have different flavor tastes. So we have green olives and Kalamata olives in this. When I say Mediterranean, that's exactly what we're doing here.
Definitely. Yeah, and all those flavors are great. And just one thing to go back to, like with portobello mushrooms, I'll often see them as a meat substitute. So you'll see portobello mushroom, burgers, quote unquote, to more meet the vegetarian or vegan concept. Just realize that you're not getting an actual protein from that, compared to maybe a black bean burger, or if somebody had like a tofu burger type of thing. So in this recipe tonight, we don't have a protein source, so obviously kind of put together, you could maybe even do this as a side dish if you wanted to, just in a smaller portion, and add in some protein. But if you wanted to do kind of like a meatless Monday, you're going to feel satisfied because there's fiber coming through all of the components. We're getting in that heart healthy fat with our olives. And like Chef said, these options that he's kind of putting together, they're gonna have a little bit higher in sodium. So, don't be fully alarmed by that. Doing salt in a diet is still okay. Remember that volume is 2,300 milligrams is kind of that recommended daily intake or daily value. So with all this combined and the volume that you're actually going to consume, you're probably still going to be totally fine with that. And really, we're watching salt intake in the general population, but also more specifically anybody dealing with, something of like hypertension, and maybe on some type of blood pressure medications, that we might be a little bit more specific of the amount of salt that they're taking in. But if you don't have any side effects and you don't have a current diagnosis of high blood pressure, this dish will be completely fine. You just might notice the salt a little bit more if you don't do a lot of salt on a regular basis.
So Michelle, you said olives have the heart healthy fat. Does that is that across the board? So your black olives, your green olives, your Kalamata olives all have the same?
Yeah, so they're all going to be that unsaturated fat, just like how we want to do olive oil or any type of oil versus like a butter or margarine. So yeah, they're going to all have the same amount of fat and the same type.
I just wanted to show you guys I kind of just pulse it. I didn't, if you're using your food processor, just don't run it. Just kind of pulse it because you just want to get this chopped up. You want it coarse. You want some character, some texture to this, what we call tapenade. So I just kind of hit my button a couple of times, just enough to get everything incorporated, chopped down a little bit more, and got all those great flavors, you got the great colors and things of that nature. So we have our tapenade made. Our mushrooms are almost done. In the same pan or on the same grill, I got some asparagus. I'm going to throw those right on there so we can grill those. Our mushrooms are almost done. Add a little bit of olive oil to there. And so this is a really simple dish, doesn't take long, and you can use, and you don't dirty up many dishes at all. Technically, it's a 2-pot dinner. We have some quinoa back here behind me already started that we made. If anybody has been in our class for more than a year, then you know that whenever we cook any grains, we use a broth, a veggie broth or a chicken broth in order to infuse flavor into that. So our quinoa is going to have some really great flavor. We cooked it in some broth and a little garlic, and we'll have that nice whole grain to go with this. So like I said, a really nice light dish, but very flavorful, and you won't feel guilty about it at all. Get our plate together.
And that's one thing I did kind of forgot about is going to be the quinoa. So that's really where the protein is going to come from. So quinoa, as it said on the website, to kind of give you an idea of what we were cooking tonight, it is technically a seed, but we utilize it in more of a grain concept for consumption. So the benefit of a seed is actually we're going to get some protein from it. And unlike most plant-based proteins, this is actually what we consider a complete protein. And so that definition really is that it is going to include all of the 9 essential amino acids that make up protein that we would get from our animal and animal products. So it's definitely a great substitution. And you're still going to get some fiber with that too. So again, you're going to feel satisfied with a smaller amount like that.
And cooking quinoa, because a lot of times people once again are intimidated by whether it's rice, whether it's quinoa, or any type of grain.
Mm-hmm.
This is an easy trick that yes, you can do the measurement method, but for instance, I had maybe about a cup of quinoa that I put in here. If you don't measure it out, because I make it enough, I kind of usually can eyeball it. As long as I put enough liquid to cover the bottom of the pan of quinoa, it comes right above it. That usually comes out to end up pretty much 9 out of 10 times. I come out with almost perfect quinoa or rice by putting enough liquid that covers that in your pan. Because as it absorbs, then it will take it up, and you won't come against that, not having enough or having too much liquid. And really, once you put that in there, I kind of saute the quinoa a little bit in a little bit of olive oil, just to kind of toast it a little bit. Then I add my warm broth. If you have broth that's already warm, that also helps because you're not introducing a room temperature or a cold liquid to a hot pan or hot thing. If it's warm, then you add that to that, let it come up to a boil, and then immediately turn it down to a simmer. Put your lid on there, you should be fine. I did that, haven't touched or looked at my quinoa, turned it off a minute ago, and perfect fluffy quinoa. No magic of TV, just a lot of practice. We're gonna put this down.
Now, Chef, do you recommend to wash quinoa? Sometimes it'll say on the packaging to wash, but I've had 2 rules of thumb. Some people do kind of follow that instruction, and others don't. And it's more because of the hull. But
because it varies. Because sometimes actually I washed it today, I didn't, and it came out great.
Yeah.
A lot of times people tell you to wash it because there may be extra starches on there, and helps it not stick or become gummy, but sometimes it depends on the product too.
And I feel like toasting it helps before you even, actually boil it for it to get fully cooked. So, and then on the artichokes, that is something that we probably don't traditionally consume. But one thing to kind of think about is that, again, it's a source of fiber, and there's actually been some studies on the artichoke itself, because it does have that fiber piece. They're looking at it to help reduce symptoms of irritable bowel side effects, but also the fiber found in artichoke is what we call a prebiotic. So that's the fiber, more likely inulin. And so that's kind of the food source that probiotics utilize in the gut. So you're kind of feeding your gut microbiome when you're consuming high fiber foods. And I think that's something that we kind of forget about on our gut health piece. So we're looking at fiber. But they also have, polyphenols. So those are those antioxidant pieces that a lot of research is going into, because again, that antioxidant is kind of helping support your your body at your cellular level, and just looking at that compound to kind of see if it can slow or reduce the risk of different types of breast cancer. So there have been some studies specific to breast cancer and potentially slowing down the cell growth. And then also another study found a similar result in mesothelioma. So again, there's definitely a lot of things in our diet and in our food consumption that can be beneficial across the board and more at that cellular level, which I think we don't always consider with that too. Now I was interested, I was trying to figure out if we were going to do like the marinated artichokes or a fresh one. Any tips on purchasing a fresh artichoke? Because those get a little tricky.
Yeah, so we did the marinated ones because it was easy and they already incorporated a little bit of flavor to that.
Makes
Most
sense.
definitely we could do a fresh one, and but it's one of those things. I know it takes a lot to break down a fresh artichoke that I'm sure not everyone would have fun with.
Yep.
So we got our mushrooms done. Oops.
So it looks like this recipe is not really a lengthy time involved in the kitchen. So if you have like less than 30 minutes, 30 minutes to put dinner on, this sounds like a great alternative to a quick dinner.
Definitely.
Because the chef's already plating.
I know, and it hasn't even been 25 minutes yet, right?
Doesn't take long at all. And see, that's the thing, is just, taking that intimidation out of a lot of food, is that it doesn't take much. You can have delicious food. Ingredients aren't anything that really intimidates you. Easily found.
What are you garnishing with, Chef?
That's the arugula.
Ah.
A very nice peppery flavor to it.
Now, disclaimer, we would top this with a little crumbled feta or goat cheese. And unfortunately, I'm telling on myself, I forgot the feta or goat cheese.
That's the best part.
But I found some sharp cheddar that just happened to be in the fridge. But I would put either some goat cheese or feta would be great on here. Keep with the Mediterranean theme.
And I think that's what I also like about the Mediterranean diet, is that it doesn't prohibit. So many of the diets prohibit dairy and things, and then they lose those nutrients. Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, very pretty. Very colorful.
It looks like something that would be expensive in a restaurant.
That's true, Ann.
I agree.
And that is always the idea is however much it costs you to make, always believe that it's restaurant quality.
Yes.
Yeah,
Presentation is key.
because you don't only eat with your mouth.
That's right.
Very true.
I do
Any-
listen.
I know it was a simple recipe, but great ingredients, very nutritionally sound ingredients, and it takes no time, and you have a full meal here that you don't have to, you can feel guilt-free about.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Does anybody have
Now,
any
what-
questions for Chef
I
or
was gonna
Michelle?
say, without the cheese, it could be considered, if I'm not mistaken, vegan, Michelle.
Yeah, it just depends on what kind of broth you use for the quinoa, which
Yeah.
you could substitute vegetable. But yeah, it would all be vegan. Yeah.
Any questions about this dish in one? Now, who's gonna try it at home?
Not me.
I
Not
would.
me.
You
No?
deliver?
It's really too much for me.
You deliver?
See, you don't even have to use the grill, just put them in your cast iron. So you can cook them the same way in your cast iron just as well, and still give the great flavors and great combination. Make it your own with what you have. And it's good to see you tonight.
Even though I rib you?
Well, that's all I have. Does anyone have anything else?
Oh, that was fast.
I know.
Wow. Well, when are you opening your restaurant?
Oh, man, that'll be years and years from now.
Yeah, I said, I was thinking, okay, I need to try out
I love
for
what I do as a private chef. I can come and go and I can bring the restaurant experience to you. So
I was thinking you could go on Chef Ramsay.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Try out on that so you can get your own restaurant.
Chef Ramsay is more of a teddy bear than you guys think.
Really?
It's a persona on there that they have. It's for a rating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, if you ever seen
Yeah.
him do the cooking with the children, he is just so nice and so sweet and so patient with the kids. So yes, his fiery persona is definitely for the ratings, I believe.
I mean, because you can't have something called Hell's Kitchen and be this nice, tender chef. So
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I do
Well,
want to thank Chef and Michelle for joining us tonight and sharing their skills. And those recipes are on our website under the recipe archive under our programs and services tab. So I hope everybody has a good night. And